of the movie, at the end of the TV show, there's a really tragic ending because a person is not happy. Maybe it's going to be for you a show about a person that appears to be really happy, but it's all contrivance, it's all made up. It's not true at all. It's not true at all. Of course, we have lots and lots of these examples in literature, don't we? Of people who, in the end, their lives are tragically ended because they were not happy people at all. We think, of course, of some of our greatest musicians in this tragic vein, don't we? Of course, Jimi Hendrix comes to mind, the great Janis Joplin comes to mind, of course, Kurt Cobain, the lead singer of Nirvana, comes to mind. We can think of a lot of people who died young. They looked so successful, and yet after the fact we find out they lived really tragic lives, especially because of drugs and alcohol. Destroyed their lives. They were not happy at all. Finally, 3B. This is an interesting personal kind of relational question. I'll just ask it out loud. Why do you think he committed suicide? Dude, he had everything. He had everything you could want. What is missing that could lead him to take his life? Is there anything that you could see in this poem that would make you gesture towards it, that maybe makes you go, well, if he didn't have this? One student pointed out, the one thing that's not mentioned in this whole poem is the word love. He's got everything else. He's got money, he's got looks, he's got admiration, he's got fans. The one thing he doesn't have is love. That's mentioned. It's mentioned. Because admiration is not the same thing as love, is it? Right? The people want to be like him, but that's not the same thing as the people loving him. Right? Maybe he's a really lonely person. That's why he took his life. Of course, there's another reading of this. If you're reading this poem during the time of the great Wall Street crash, when all those really wealthy people lost millions of dollars in the great crash, and one of the immediate side effects, tragically, of the great Wall Street crash and the depression that followed was suicide. There were a number of people who took their lives right on the very day that crash happened, because one minute they were valued at $100 million, and the next minute they were valued at $20, literally. They had nothing. They went from having everything to having nothing, and they couldn't live with that fact. Couldn't live with that fact. Which begs another interesting question. What is for you the one object in your life you could not live without? Is there something that you would say, I got to have this. This is something I have. I don't part with it. I keep it. It's mine. I don't want to live without that. A final question. Who do you admire? If you could be somebody than who you are right now, who would that somebody be? Is it somebody famous? Or is it somebody that you know, and you kind of look at their life and you go, I'd like to have my life like that. In other words, they're not famous, like, fame-wise, but you look at them, you respect them in some way. Is there a life you would live other than the life that you have? Of course, some of you will say, I don't want to live anybody else's life. I want to live my own life, which in some ways, of course, Robinson would say, yep, you're learning the message of this poem, right? Don't envy other people, because no matter how much you think you know about their life, sometimes there's a lot that's hidden and you don't know. Finally, do you think stuff can make you happy? If right now somebody were to walk in this room and say, hey, congratulations, you just got $10 million and gave it to you, would your life be better with $10 million? And if you say yeah, then Robinson will ask you, why do you say yeah? Because then, dude, I wouldn't have to. See how you finish that? W-O-R-K. But there's a good question about what would you do with your life? How would you feel valuable? Is it possible that you could be $10 million richer and sad, lonely? Do you think that ever has happened in the history of the world? And of course, this poem, Richard Cory, comes to mind. Do you think there are a few Richard Corys still alive who have made it, but they're not happy, they're sad? Well, there you go, an introduction to Edwin Robinson's two great poems anyway. Thank you.